Hi, everybody. Jennifer Johnson here. Thank you so much for joining us for the JIT May webinar. Clouds don't have to be so hard. We've got a lot to discuss. There's a lot on this topic that we will try to begin to cover in this hour. And we have an agenda for you. We will discuss the issues with cloud management that we are all experiencing to one degree or another when we're tackling this Wild West. And we will also cover other angles of cloud management, some of the other parts of your company that are affected by the company's ability to effectively manage the cloud environments, including all the IT service management organizations and finance, of course. We have our solution experts here to discuss this topic. We have Norman Moore, our principal cloud architect, is with us, and Mark Romero, the principal solution architect. These guys understand what you're going through and have some solutions for you. We also have our national director of national sales, Mark Rochelli. And I am the JIT Director of PMO and Marketing, and I am very pleased to present this fantastic team. But more about JIT, I'd like to turn this over to Mark Rochelli.
Thank you. We're very excited to present this webinar to you. We're going to be sharing some fantastic information, but before we do that, and before I turn it over to Norman, I just wanted to give you a very brief overview of who we are. So JIT has been around in the ServiceNow ecosystem for 10 years, actually over 10 years now, and we are a ServiceNow Premier Partner for both sales and service. So we do implementations as well as sell licensing. So if you have any of those needs, please feel free to let us know. A couple of things just to point out here on this slide. We have specializations in the areas in the upper right that you see, but I wanted to draw your attention to just a couple of areas. We have a very strong presence and a business practice built around ITSM, ITOM. Of course, we'll be talking about a subset of ITOM with cloud management today. We also have business units built around HR and CSM. So, and we also have a unit that specializes in custom app development and app engine. So there's other things, obviously, other parts of the platform within the organization that we cover, but those are our real core specialties. Our organization has over 50 dedicated ServiceNow resources, and those are just really scratching the surface of the number of resources we have access to. There's another 300 plus consultants that stand behind us and regularly work with JIT. So we have a very wide band of resources that we can supply to our customers and our clients. Our average tenure of our employees is over 5 years in the ServiceNow ecosystem. So that's important to you because our organization, the folks that we bring, the consultants that we bring to bear, know the ServiceNow platform inside and out. And what we like to say is you're standing on the shoulders of all of the hundreds of implementations that we've done in the past. So we understand what a good implementation looks like, and we know the potholes to avoid. We have over 400 certifications in the ServiceNow space, and that's both on the pre-sales, sales, and technical standpoint. And we've done over 300,000 hours, and actually I think now we're closer to 325,000 hours of ServiceNow experience. This is hands-on experience, again, standing on the shoulders of all of those implementations that we've done in the past. The rectangles on the right-hand side in the middle, I want to draw your attention to that quickly as well. Those are the areas that we can help from a ServiceNow standpoint. So it's really cradle to grave. We start with our strategic vision, which can help organizations to build a roadmap, whether it's, you need some process consulting. We like to say that it really begins with the process. You have to start and have a strong process, because as I like to say, if you put a poor process in a fantastic platform like ServiceNow, you often get bad results faster, and we want to help you avoid that. Of course, we do architecture, implementation, and maintenance, And then on the other side of that, of the back end, we can also help you with health checks and virtual bench, which is our residency practice. Maybe you have a ServiceNow team already in place and you want to focus that team on strategic initiatives, or maybe you're trying to implement, let's say, CSM, and you don't have CSM expertise on your team. You can reach out to JIT and we have those resources available to you. We are based in Chicago, Illinois, but as you can see on the map, we have presence throughout North America and also into the UK and Europe. If you'd like to find out more about JIT, I'd invite you to join us at our website at www.jitrs.com. And with that, I would like to now turn it over to our principal cloud architect, Norman Moore, to introduce you to cloud management. Norman, take it away.
Thanks, Mark. So today we're going to talk about a few things around cloud management and kind of the problems that we see customers have, and also how do we address those problems and how we resolve them. So one of the major issues that we see around cloud management is, well, the lack of cloud management is cloud sprawl. As we all know, we're migrating faster to cloud in ways that, quite honestly, we're displacing data centers. And what's happening now is, as we spin up these cloud environments, we're not managing what the length of time, the capabilities, the capacity. So all of these things that we normally manage our data centers with, we don't have those same metrics in the cloud. So we're starting to see expansion there, and we want to control that expansion. The dark cloud, as you know, there are dev environments, testing environments, production environments, and a lot of times we are deploying these environments in various ways. How much of that cloud are we actually utilizing? If you think about your dev environments alone, you could have hundreds of cloud environments sitting out there collecting dust, not really being utilized. So there's a cost penalty for that. So we want to manage that dark cloud that's just sitting there. Next, cloud underutilization. So if you think about all of this capability or capacity out there for cloud management, we want to be able to manage that. So cloud underutilization. So we want to make sure that when we do deploy these cloud environments, we are architecting them in a way that we know that utilization is optimized. As we deploy these, are we getting that feedback loop? Do we see that they're running at 80, 60, 80% versus 2 or 3%? Or are they running at 90, 95% and we're finding that we have long query times against databases? So we want to make sure that the cloud is being utilized appropriately based off our architectures that we've defined. Lease penalties, vendors love lease penalties because if you provision an environment that is meant to be there for 12 months and you go and exceed that timeline, oftentimes they just renew that lease and they'll renew it indefinitely. Excuse me. So as we deploy these clouds, we want to manage that and understand what the terms of that cloud is. And if we are going to release that, we release it in a timely manner. IT budgets and understanding how those IT budgets can be exceeded with cloud solutions. The more cloud that we deploy, the higher the budgets that we're generating, right? So as those budgets are consumed, we want to manage those budgets and assure that quarter by quarter, we're not exceeding those budgets based off of our planned or budgets that we've defined. And we do that through limits or quotas against that. And we want to make sure that those are implemented throughout the cloud deployment process. Underperforming cloud, cost management. Again, there is a cost that we're deploying. If these clouds are underperforming or the like exchange from going from physical servers to cloud servers is too expensive, we need to understand that. So if we're performing at the optimal level, then we're getting the benefits and we're getting the cost savings. So we want to make sure all the KPIs are aligned to that. Cloud security. This is something that I haven't heard often lately. Early on, I heard a lot about cloud security, but I think we are now assuming that the vendors are managing this level of security. We can't always assume that. So we need to make sure that whoever the cloud provider we are utilizing is following our own security definition and what the CISO is defining for security for our applications. Critical cloud app rationalization. So as you look throughout your application suite, and if you look at all of your enterprise applications, we want to rationalize those applications, and we want to understand what applications can be deployed to the cloud and which applications do we want to maintain in-house. There is a cost to deploying applications out to the cloud, and that also means knowledge, information, and data. So how do we recover that data? How do we maintain the knowledge? And how do we maintain the expertise that we've built over time? When we do move those to the cloud, sometimes it's out of sight, out of mind, and we don't manage it appropriately. And then who really owns the cloud? So if you think about these cloud solutions as we deploy them to the enterprise and we start to utilize them and we start to collect all of this data on customer information, production information, so forth and so on, we need that information to make decisions in the future. And if we move from one cloud vendor to another, or we bring that cloud solution back in-house, how do we recover that data? So do we have a deprovisioning process for those cloud solutions? All right. Next, ITSM is transforming the cloud. So cloud is not just a utility, it's actually a process. So just like over the last 25, 30 years, we've had ITIL and we've built all of these complex processes around incident problem change and so forth. We have the same methodology that we want to apply to the cloud around those solutions. So when we talk about enterprise and migrating to the cloud, we want to assure that that solution that we're deploying to the cloud follows the same processes that we've built over time. Another item is call volume is driven by cloud user experience. So as you deploy more cloud solutions, you're going to have more users, and you're going to start seeing a inversion happen where the cloud volume calls are going to start exceeding your normal in-house calls. So the question then is, who owns those calls? Is it the cloud provider? Is it your IT organization? So there needs to be delineation on where that call goes to when we start getting those cloud calls, and they're not related to our process. It's more of the application. ITSM tools are evolving to support the cloud. ServiceNow has done a great job of building out solutions around the cloud, and that's what we're going to demonstrate today. But also the integration of your current processes around ITSM and tying the new cloud management to that process. So we're going to show you some seamless capabilities there. Cloud Lifecycle has evolved and creates more liability. Liability is always an issue when you're dealing with enterprise applications. There's a cost liability, there's a customer liability, and then there's a legal liability. And we want to make sure that the cloud lifecycle manages all of those liabilities appropriately. Another component is increased level of services required. As you move from one system to another system and you deploy that to the cloud, your service requirements or service levels are going to change also. Before, they could accept that this was a mainframe solution and it took 2 days to get a response. But now that you're a cloud solution, they expect 10, 15 minutes or even chat capabilities. So we want to assure that we're aligned with that user experience of how they're going to be serviced when they do call in for those cloud applications. Changes in cloud accelerating, or changes are accelerating in the cloud. Customers are asking for more things faster, quicker now. We are in the Amazon age where I can click a button and the same day I can receive that item. And that same experience is also being moved to our enterprise applications. So again, it's just putting that new hat on and saying, how can we service our customers better, faster, quicker, and giving them the experience that they expect. And ITSM is critical to cloud management and will continue to be the cornerstone for the success. Again, you've built all these complex processes. So now how do we incorporate the cloud management into that? As you can see, every day there's a new cloud company coming to the market. And one of those things is how do we manage those cloud solutions, and then also the infrastructure to support that cloud capability. Next, we have the cloud lifecycle management. So visually, this is to break out the capabilities of the cloud solution provided by ServiceNow. And in these buckets, you'll notice that we monitor cloud fabric. We execute the provisioning of cloud sessions. So there's process, there's automation, there's activities, there's assignments. So all of those things, as we traverse the cloud lifecycle, we have to execute and make sure that every step is managed throughout the process. And ServiceNow has provided one pane of glass to give you all of these capabilities, from monitoring, provisioning, fulfillment, billing, lifecycle cost and events management, cloud orchestration. What I love about cloud orchestration is when we start to tie our business processes to cloud orchestration, now we can tie to literally hundreds of solutions out there and automate the data transformation of that. We've done that for many customers and it's worked out really well. Gone are the days where we do APIs that take weeks, if not months, to develop, or never. And oftentimes we do things like flat file integrations or flat file feeds, where cloud orchestration has really expanded that capability. And now we have real-time integrations with a lot of the solutions out there. Lease termination, end of life. Again, we don't want to just be spinning up VMware sessions and AWS and Azure. We want to make sure that we're following the quotas, the termination lease requirements, and we're following our business process. And an integration to asset management. Asset management is vital in the sense that we know things like the contract, we understand the licensing, we understand the ownership, we understand the terms and conditions. So all of those information points that we need with our vendors or our cloud vendors, we need to manage within the asset management solution. And then monitoring the health of individual cloud services. ServiceNow's ITOM solution is expanding, and as it continues to expand and the ability to monitor more solutions, you're going to see that it's one pane of glass now. It's literally one area we can go to and see all of our cloud vendors and the health and success of those solutions. So pretty exciting times. We're seeing that next wave happen of digital transformation, and cloud management is the forefront of that. So when we talk about universal dashboards, we want to have a place where we can go to and see everything that might be relevant to us around the cloud solution, and then the ability to take action against that cloud. So you can see things like the spend. How much are we spending on our cloud solutions? What is our budget? Are we near exceeding that budget? And if so, show it as red, and so we can do some investigation. What are some cloud solutions or what stacks are running and which ones are having errors? What is the health of those cloud solutions? The other thing is we can manage this as an admin, and as requests come in, we can execute on those requests from a single pane of glass. Orchestration. So from an ITSM standpoint, we have all of your ITSM processes: request, change, incident, task management, lease operations, business schedule operations, so monitoring. So all of the ServiceNow core functionality ties back to the cloud solution. So you have all of the functions. So if there is an outage with Azure, we get a notification. Based off of that notification, we automatically generate an incident ticket. If it's spinning up multiple incident tickets, maybe we assign it to a problem ticket. At that time, your administrators or architects or technicians will investigate that cloud solution. And now, having that integrated into your ITOM solutions, we can act upon those incidents or those problems in ways where we can orchestrate a run book, which will then maybe hop the server and restart the database and then do some automated testing against it. So all of these things are possible now with cloud, with the cloud management solution. And we'll talk about that with the orchestration capabilities. So how do we automate the cloud? So, when we talk about VMware, for example, we put a ticket in, we submit that ticket, and then something is assigned, that ticket is assigned to a technician, and that technician presses a button and starts his cloud and configures it. Why does it have to be that complicated? Why can't it start with maybe a request for a cloud environment, which once it's approved, it automatically fires that off and deploys that cloud solution for me, and then emails me when that cloud solution is available in 5 minutes, right? So now I have my username, passwords, and I can log in and start utilizing that cloud. Very similar to how ServiceNow does their developer instances today. So we now have that capability. ServiceNow does it with developers instances. Now we can do it with Azure. We can do it with AWS. We can do it with any cloud provider because we have the orchestration engine capable to do that. And then ultimately, these are cloud functions. These are providing capabilities for the enterprise. And when there's a capability for the enterprise, we want to understand the cost and the benefit. How much is it costing us? Are we getting the benefits that all this cloud solutions and providers are telling us we're getting? And are the KPIs aligned to those? So this dashboard really provides you that single pane of glass of your cost, your financial impact, and your return on investment. So how many password resets did we do this month automated? How many deployments were automated through cloud orchestration that we didn't have to do manually? So all those things can be defined as metrics within the ServiceNow cloud management solution. And with that said, I'll turn it to Mark Romero, who will demonstrate the solution and application.
To kind of piggyback on what Norman was saying, this is an example of the cloud management scenario that we've got for you. This is what we're looking at here is the cloud user portal. So the nice thing about this is it's leveraging the same service portal capabilities that likely some folks on the call are familiar with. So this is a dedicated portal specifically focused on functionality around cloud management, being able to manage infrastructure resources, being able to perform maintenance activities against those, monitor health of those resources, things like that. And from a back-end administrative standpoint, it's the same, leveraging the same components, service portal components, as what you're likely already familiar with in terms of, a service catalog or end user service portal, maybe a portal for HR or customer service, things like that. This is very similar, just focused on cloud management use case specifically. So what you'll see is we've done, for the purpose of our conversation today, we've done a light configuration of what's natively provided out of the box with the solution. You'll see there's 4 main areas that we'll kind of focus on for today. The ability to launch a stack. So we do have an example integration to Azure for the purpose of provisioning and performing some maintenance activities against an Azure server. We'll demonstrate that a little bit later. The ability to manage stacks of infrastructure resources. So again, once you provision resources through this, or you're integrated to existing resources, you can manage those from a maintenance and ongoing perspective within the tool. View activities is a really cool area we like to dig into as well, and this is kind of tying in some of those ITSM components that Norman had mentioned. So the nice thing here is that cloud management leverages the ITSM processes that you're already likely using today, but tailors it or kind of focuses on that cloud management use case and does things like have dedicated requests and dedicated incidents and dedicated change requests, leveraging that same sort of foundational process that you've implemented, but focusing it on your cloud management activities. And then there's a lot of dashboarding capabilities as well. This is leveraging both native reporting in the system as well as performance analytics, if that's something that your organization is using, to kind of bring in some of those controls, some of the visibility components, and some of the financial aspects that Norman covered as well. Just to kind of touch on what we've got displayed on the dashboard, as well as just a few examples of what can be configured here. Obviously, again, because this is a service portal dashboard, this could be very much a dynamic interface. The use case or sort of persona that we've got in place here is a server administrator or some type of infrastructure technical resource. This would likely be the user portal that they would see. Leveraging service portal dynamic capabilities, though, this could be a dynamic interface that changes if depending on the role of the person that's looking at this. So this could be a different set of information if it's more of like a director or a VP over the infrastructure area versus more of this technical user. And just for some examples of what we've got on here, you can see the high level visibility to reports such as spend, budgeting information. Quotas, another powerful component of cloud management, and we'll touch on that in more detail as we kind of go through the integrated example. But what quotas allow you to do is set limitations or caps on things like provisioning limits or even the amount of servers or maybe the amount of storage or something that a particular user or group can have. So it really allows you to start enforcing some type of process or quota limitations where a lot of folks that we're discussing these opportunities with today, it's a little bit unmanaged and it's hard to know what you're utilizing, what's maybe provisioned but not being utilized, and also be able to enforce any type of control around that. Other things on the dashboard are visibility into infrastructure resources, like I had mentioned, so you can see sort of high level recent activities that have been completed against those, as well as health related information. So any types of incidents opened against infrastructure resources, requests that you may have submitted for provisioning related activities, adding additional storage to a server or memory or things like that. I will jump into this launch a stack component. So what you'll see here is that this takes me to the catalog component of Service Portal. And in this case, you'll see it's again, tailored or specifically targeted on a cloud management focus. We don't have a ton of catalog items in here today, but you can imagine scaling this out. You could have as many catalog items as needed, and they could be grouped or focus on any different sort of scenarios. So this is the cloud management functionality within ServiceNow, as Norman mentioned, is intended to be very much vendor agnostic. So this is intended to be integrated to any and all providers that you are using with your new environment. And it's there's an aspect here where for most folks that are interested in this type of solution, you're likely utilizing more than one vendor. You'll see we have as I mentioned, an integration to Azure, and we have a catalog item that's sort of a technical catalog item that would be utilized by an administrator or some type of technical role for the purpose of provisioning a server. So I'll jump into that as the example. But again, you can imagine where this would be. And again, so what we're looking at here is the catalog item view. Not so much important in terms of what we're seeing on the screen. This is actually, we created this catalog item for technical folks on the call. We created this leveraging an Azure provided template. So newer versions of ServiceNow's cloud management functionality allow intake of vendor templates, which is a pretty standard way to integrate with cloud vendors. So it's kind of nice from a technical standpoint. It gives you a very easy, clean way to pass necessary or required attributes through your integration for the purpose of what it is that you're trying to achieve, in this case, provisioning an Azure server. But you can imagine that this catalog item could be, once you've got that initial sort of integration and the systems are communicating back and forth, you can pare this down to a more user-friendly or end-user-facing catalog item that essentially does the same thing. So a lot of use cases that we're starting to see in the wild when speaking to customers about this is that they'd like the ability to create a nice user-friendly catalog item with just a couple of fields that ask some basic information to an end user, business, non-technical user audience. And then for it to sort of behind the scenes send the appropriate approvals or review steps, and then for the provisioning required to happen in an automated fashion. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill this out. Again, not so much important what is here from an attribute standpoint, but imagine that this is sort of a technical user's ability to use a catalog item in a portal interface to submit a request for provisioning. For folks that are familiar with the service catalog and configuring service catalog items or forms within this type of an interface, you have a lot of the things that you'd expect in terms of configuration abilities. So this is has a lot of the same form and field logic. You can show and hide different types of fields or forms based on logic that you define. You can leverage things like client scripts and those types of capabilities. Okay, so now that I've got this filled out, I'm going to submit the request. You'll see that this routes me to the activities view of the portal. So again, there's a dedicated view of ongoing activities. So me as a server administrator in this case, I'm going to have sort of a running list or access to all of the types of things that I've done as it relates to my cloud management role. And you'll see it's broken down into requests, change requests, incidents, things like that. So again, leveraging that ITSM process, but tailoring it or focusing on the cloud management use case. And the nice thing is over time, you'll see I have sort of a running history of not only all of the different types of actions or activities that I've done, but the life cycle of the infrastructure resources associated with those activities. And we'll kind of dig into that as we walk through this specific example. You'll see that once the request was submitted, it's now waiting for approval. So I'm actually going to jump into the backend system just to demonstrate a couple of key things. First is the request for approval itself. So if you've worked with any types of request management or catalog items in the past, you're likely familiar with this. But we like to show it just in case folks are not yet familiar with this, or if you're newer to the ServiceNow platform. This is an example of an email request that is being generated and sent based on the request that I submitted, right? So I submitted the request as a user, and let's say in this scenario, it has to route to my manager or maybe some type of infrastructure manager in order to approve the provisioning request. So what we're looking at here is a rendered example of what that manager would see in their email and the ability to directly approve or reject the request to provision that server directly in their email. This can be dynamically configured. It can have different types of branding, logos, colors. This is obviously a fairly simple example, but you can use HTML, CSS type coding to make this look and feel however you'd like. The other thing is that it can dynamically incorporate or pull in different aspects of the request itself. So you'll see there's some basic information here, the request number, any comments or information about the request, who else is involved in the approval sequence, things like that. For some folks, it would be important here to include like financial information if the provisioning of this server maybe has a budget impact to the person that's approving it, things like that. And then the other thing that we typically comment on here is that in addition to the email notifications, folks have the ability to review and approve or reject these in their service portal if that's something that is being used. So some folks have approvals and sort of a self-service interface for that within their service portal interface. as well as the ServiceNow mobile application. So there's push notification capabilities around approvals, and all of that is, has the ability to be leveraged here for the cloud management process as well. One other thing that I'll show just briefly is the actual request item that is submitted. So I mentioned earlier that a nice function of cloud management and the cloud management suite within ServiceNow is that there are dedicated records for all activities that happen. So dedicated requests, dedicated incidents. And I just want to jump into the item real briefly for the purpose of showing the workflow. And essentially what we're looking at now, this is a bit of an eye chart or a complex workflow to look at, especially if you're a non-technical user on the call. But really what I want to show here is that this is actually primarily the workflow that's provided out of the box by ServiceNow. And this is one of the key components that is intended to be the centralized starting point for your integration to really any cloud vendor. So this is not intended to be tailored to any one specific vendor. It's intended to be vendor agnostic and allow you to have a nice starting point or basis or foundation for integrating to, Azure, AWS, VMware, whomever it is, and be leveraging kind of that same standardized process. Now, on top of this standardized process, you build in kind of more complex capabilities or vendor-specific things that you're trying to achieve. But ServiceNow does a really nice job in this case of providing a very robust set of capabilities out of the box to get you up and running with your initial integration to just about any vendor very, very quickly, which is nice. So I'll jump back into the request and just go ahead and approve this so we can proceed. If I jump back to the portal, you'll see that now my request has been marked approved. I've also successfully passed through the check for quota and capacity. So we talked a little bit about this earlier, and what you'll see is now the request is actually going through the provisioning step. So we're actually integrated out to our Azure environment. It's going through a series of activities for provisioning my server, provisioning my storage array, things like that. While that's happening, it take a couple of minutes. I'm just trying to think. So yeah, quota capacity we talked about initially. Again, there's a lot of capability around building that out as an organization, and you can get as granular or as specific as needed. And it's an additional layer of control around provisioning for cloud resources, in addition to just your standard request approval capability within ServiceNow. So it's nice that they sort of give you both options. And for folks that are familiar with the approval process in ServiceNow, just generally, it's kind of the same case there. You can build various generic or simple approvals, or you can build a complex set of approvals where it's routed to different groups, or maybe it's a series of nested approvals, things like that. On top of that, for cloud management specifically, you have this quota or capacity capability. And again, that can be enforced on specific infrastructure related things. So you can enforce a particular group to have a max number of virtual or infrastructure related resources, or maybe even as specific as a limitation on storage or memory or things like that. This is going to take just a couple more minutes. So while we're waiting, I think I might just jump into an example of a request that's already been completed. So once the provisioning is completed, you'll see something that looks essentially like this. You can then jump into the actual infrastructure resource to view information about that. So you'll see in this case, I'm jumping into a previous request for an infrastructure resource that I had submitted. And this is actually one that's now been terminated, but like, other ITSM type request management, the request kind of lives on. So you've got an overall life cycle of your infrastructure. You can see various types of changes or incidents that have occurred against it. And it, kind of gives you a nice interface for managing those resources moving forward. The other thing that you can do from this interface is do maintenance activities. So I mentioned earlier, you can open additional requests for maintenance against these resources. So you can request more storage, request more memory, change different configuration settings about your resource, all from this service portal interface, which is nice. So really the intended use case from this scenario is that if I'm a server administrator, I can kind of live in this service portal interface and jump back and forth between various areas to really manage all of my infrastructure resources, regardless of the vendor. And it's all in one kind of streamlined portal, which is nice. Just jump back and see if that had completed provisioning. So you'll see now this is completed provisioning. I'll jump into this newly provisioned server. Not much more to add here. Like I said, you'll have ability to start, stop the machine here. You can apply provisioning activities, all the things that I've mentioned. Jump back to the home page just to kind of give a summary of everything we've talked about. Again, this is kind of specifically from the user scenario of a technical sort of administrator type user, but I hope gives you an idea of the capabilities here. We're having a lot of discussions with folks around different personas that would potentially view this. There's one other interface I'll show as well, which is the admin portal. But again, this is kind of the main interface that is utilized, the user portal, and you sort of just build dynamic views of this depending on what your use cases are to use it. I'll jump quickly just into the admin portal. You'll see there's a link on the top right. This is for anybody that's administered other major platforms within or other major applications within ServiceNow, such as ITBM or HR. You may be familiar with this concept, but this is the idea that you can extend capabilities past your centralized platform owner or ServiceNow platform administrator to different groups to sort of administer their own applications. So you'll see within this cloud admin portal, there's a dedicated set of configurable quotas and metrics and things like that that are specifically tailored to kind of that infrastructure management type role. But it's nice because it gives them a dedicated admin portal to not only manage the actual resources, but manage the cloud management application suite within ServiceNow, and allows for that to sort of be extended past just your sort of centralized or primary ServiceNow administrator, so that you can have infrastructure resources also serve as administrators of the cloud management functionality specifically. So with that, that's the extent of our demo. I think I'll turn it back over to Jennifer.
All right. Thank you, Mark. That was great. There we are. Any other questions for our panel today? Not today. I gotcha. But we thank you very, very much for joining us today. Thank you to our panel. Fantastic information. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. And the visuals helped a ton as well. If you are interested in a discussion with our subject matter experts at JIT regarding your current cloud management processes, your current situation, we would love to talk to you. Please feel free to contact us at jitrs.com. That's our website. You can contact us in several places on there. You can read more about what we can do if cloud management is not your only concern, where you're looking for solutions and folks who understand what you're going through and really want to help. So I would like to thank you all once again. Thank you to the panel. And we hope to see you next month on the JIT June webinar.